All right, guys. So there we go. How about right there? So let's see, real quick. I wanted to make an update video on my centralized control board. Still haven't come up with another name for that. Okay, so what I wanted to highlight, there was a couple of questions on the board. Vaughn, you had asked about flywheels. So I've expanded my flywheel out here. So what that looks like, I'm in the morning time portion of my daily flywheel over here on the left. And right now I'm in my 12-week year. So which this 12-week year is all about content creation. I'm creating content. Ta-da! All right, I'm going to go ahead and check that off. And then afterwards, the next thing will be transition, which I have a very complicated, I've never even addressed that with anybody, but I have a kind of a complicated philosophy of transitions. And so when I get on the board, obviously I'm trying to get to this bright, shining spot right now. Create a video on the current edge of this board development is what I'm doing. So that's what's at the top there. The next thing will be transition on my flywheels. Next action, create video about this board. So check, and then I'm going to go eat some breakfast, which is peanut butter, chocolate chip, baked oatmeal, which is essentially like having a cookie for breakfast. So cheers to that. Looking forward to that. And then we'll be getting ready to go to church, which is why I'm hurrying, because I don't have much time, but I want to make the video. And then sliding across, yesterday I did some development on a new section of the board. So again, this board is all about cultivating focus in a particular direction. So because I'm trying to get to the top node of this board, right here of this list, the capture list, all the time, it's becoming more and more rich to me as I develop ideas about what to do with it. And I'm starting to embed more stuff in it. So like usually I just got done coffee time with my wife, which I do every morning. And I actually put down what we talked about, put some links there. We talked about this thing that Frank G of New York, New York. Thank you, buddy. Speaking of breakfast time, it's nice having servants. Yeah, so Frank G sent me this video about kind of Zettelkasten development, which was super fascinating. So I took notes about that and then kind of read through the notes and talked about that with my wife, because my wife is so great. She'll listen to me talk about Zettelkasten for an hour and actually contribute some thoughts. So we talked about that, which was pretty cool. So I say that to say I'm starting to embed more rich and enjoyable details that, number one, it's just fun for me. Number two, some of those things are creating rich context for project creation outside of this node. So I've already talked about that. So yeah, I'm a little bit all over the map right now, but a couple of things. Vaughn, you had wanted to see what my daily flywheel was. I'm going to show, I've got an evening flywheel, so I start my day the night before. That's something my dad taught me. We grew up on a farm. Got up at 4 in the morning to go milk the cows and feed the chickens and all that stuff. So he just really cultivated this rhythm of, you don't want to wake up in the morning and wonder what you're doing. You want to wake up in the morning with the platform set, so like with your boots beside your bed, basically, so you can just get out of bed, put your clothes on, put your boots on, and go out to the barn without having to think about it, because you're not going to be able to think at 4 in the morning. You're just going to be able to act. So you want to kind of automate that, and the way you do that is to plan your morning the night before. So that's my evening flywheel, is kind of getting ready for the day. And then my morning flywheel, it looks complicated. It is complicated, I guess. Like, it looks like a lot, and it is a lot. But the experience of it is simply looking at the next item. So it doesn't feel complicated. Nick Catton talked about like the lightness of Workflowy. And I really love creating systems that feel light to the touch, very responsive, but don't take a lot of attention. So really, it is complicated below the surface, but all I'm looking at is whatever's at the top. So I just come in here. Oh yeah, I need to make sure I enact my transition. Flywheel. Yeah, make sure I get my breakfast next. Is there anything I want to do here? And then capture whatever I'm currently doing, which I've already done. So that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel complicated. But I love building the system underneath the surface. Like that's like eating candy to me. It's super fun. So back to the flywheel. If there's something that I'm not going to do for whatever reason, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to do all of that stuff. But if there's something that doesn't make sense for me to do that day, or I just don't get to, or forget about it or whatever, I grab this now. So maybe I skip 2 of these things. I'm just not going to do them today. I just grab this now, and that becomes the new top for me. I do wish that it was like, I wonder if there's something else I could do. I wish it was bigger, and this would be a place where I would actually want to color. Like, it would be great if I could highlight that and make it colored so it's a little easier to see, but whatever, it works. So I just slide that down if I'm skipping things, and then, start completing things from there. I'll Control Z back out of that. But for now, I'm on track. Let's see. Vaughn, you'd also asked about backlinks and inbox. I might actually take this inbox out. I don't know. You'll see there's nothing in my inbox. Explicitly, there's just these backlinks. I'll move myself out of the way. This is coming from my journal. It could also come from other sources, like if I was working in a project and had a brainstorm that I needed to process some way outside of that project, like I just thought about something else, and it was kind of had to do with the brainstorm of the project, but also might apply to how I'm developing Zettelkasten or something I want to maybe do for Gracie or whatever. I would embed inbox, which would create a backlink in the inbox. And then I go through this. These become mirrors, so I can delete them. So basically, I can just go through, ask myself the GTD question, what does this mean to me? So Gracie actually asked, I was talking about from the video I was discussing with her, Obsidian, and the guy who was making the video used Obsidian. The benefit / problem with Obsidian, which is a fantastic program, is one of the benefits is it's local to your computer, so you own the information in a sense. So it's like when you used to be able to, you probably still can, but I used to buy Microsoft programs and own the programs. They were on my computer. Didn't matter what happened to Microsoft in a sense, that even if they exploded and were deleted from the face of the earth, I would still have that program on my computer, at least until my operating system stopped working and integrating with it in a few years. But I still, for example, have Microsoft Project 2002 maybe, and AutoCAD LT 2004, and I own the program, and they don't function like the new versions, but I own them. I can still use them. They still operate. Obsidian's kind of like that in that it's local, and all of it's just text on your computer. And so even if Obsidian imploded and disappeared, you would still have all that information. And you can tell an app is important to a guy when his wife is concerned about, what will happen to my husband if something happens to Workflowy, like if whatever, if they go bankrupt or something, I don't, and cease to exist, which happens to apps sometimes. Like what's going to happen to my husband with his 100,000 nodes of embedded information that is kind of his external brain. Like I'm going to need therapy, obviously. And so I was talking about Obsidian, and that was local. She's like, can you export from Workflowy to Obsidian? So over here in this capture node under coffee time, Gracie mentioned that. Can you go from Workflowy to Obsidian? And I was wondering if you could do it with OPML as a workable backup. I'm not going to move to Obsidian, but as a backup where I could still have access to the information even if Workflowy was down for a day or whatever, and which occasionally happens, it'll be down for a little bit. I could jump into Obsidian and still have access to the information. Maybe not as functionally as Workflowy, but so there I'm, talking to Gracie, and she says that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I need to look into that. So on my phone, typed in that comment, tagged it with inbox, and then that becomes something that goes into my UCD inbox here on Workflowy. So here at the end of the day or at the end of the week, whenever, if what's in my inbox is something I need to get to, like make sure you call the dentist to cancel your meeting or cancel your dental, what's the word for it? Not meeting, appointment. Anything that's like time specific, I process by the end of the day. Anything that's not time specific, I'll just do it whenever, sometime within the week or by Saturday. So that's kind of how I handle inbox. But that's, so basically from any place in my Workflowy, I can tag something inbox and it goes to a backlink. And then once I've looked at it, decide what I want to do with it, maybe add a task to my miscellaneous task list to research that. And then I can just hit backspace and it disappears. It's still here. So it still exists. It's just deleted. I don't know why it's actually still showing. That's interesting. I guess, yeah, that's interesting. Jesse, question mark. It's still showing a link to inbox. I would have thought that would have deleted it somehow, but guess not. Interesting. I went to hit Control Z and it did not put it back. Let me see what happens here. Okay. So that's curious. I can delete it here. It still shows the link there. I can't Control Z to put it back. So there's a little bit of a dynamic there that was unexpected. So yeah, that's what that's all about. And then I would just want to take a minute because yesterday I removed calendar. I embedded calendar here, so it's still there, but I only need to use it for archives once a day. So it doesn't need to be here on my board at this point. I'm not using it as a calendar. I'm using it as an archive file. But that freed up a little bit of visual space for this right here. So I'm pretty excited about this, the possibility of it. I don't think it's going to look like this in a little while, but like I may do something different with it. In fact, this may end up here. I don't know. But for now, it's here. So at the top, I have one thing that I really want to focus on. So I'm working on developing some writing, and I want to keep in mind this thought that's excellent. It's progressive summarization method. So inside of that is I've taken notes on this video. So there's a bunch of stuff in there. That's this really great thought about how not to overthink things too much until you need to. So, don't spend a lot of time working in your Zettelkasten node and really developing all these thoughts because you just don't have time to do it until a Zettelkasten node or a book that you dropped a link to in your Zettelkasten becomes a part of a project, and then summarize that, and then if you use it again, summarize it even more, and if you use it again, summarize it more, so it becomes more and more rich and distilled in your thinking. I love the thought, and so I want to do that for every single thought I ever have, but obviously I don't have the time for that. So this is just a way of identifying which thoughts are ones that are worth spending time with. So anyway, just right now with some stuff I'm doing, I want to keep that in mind. So I went into my Zettelkasten, kind of looked down my Zettelkasten list and thought, oh, that's the thought I want to keep in mind. So I dropped it at the top here, which means I'm going to see that 30, 40, 50 times a day. So I'll leave it there for a few days. And hopefully the distillation of that will leave a residue in my mind where I can keep those thoughts in my mind a little closer, a little more visible, even though I move it off the board. So that's the idea. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try it. I won't go into what my letter to my future self is. I just write letters to my future self and then read them over a period of time. But then this right here, so over here on the capture, I'm just logging what I'm doing, which is kind of driven by my daily flywheel and my next actions for the most part, or should be. But then I thought, it would be nice to have a form to fill out every day, just a review form or something. I wonder what that would look like. So I played around with it yesterday, and this is what I came up with. My wife keeps a gratitude log, which is literally a little notebook in her purse, I guess, is where she keeps it. And she every day writes down just a few things she's grateful for. So in the middle of stress and kids and all the craziness of life, she just wants to take a few minutes and think, okay, today's been a hard day, but here's 2 or 3 things that I'm really grateful for. So I like that. And now she has thousands of things. Like I don't actually, I haven't ever read through it, but every once in a while I'll just be open. I'll see she's on item number 1,242 or whatever. I'm like, 1,492 times she has stopped and reflected on something positive. And that's not a bad thing. I'd like to cultivate that. So maybe this is the format I'll do it in. 3 new ideas every day. I try and come up with 3 just brand new ideas that I've never thought of. Usually I just take 2 completely disparate thoughts that have nothing to do with each other. Like, this is the kind of thing I just think about. Doctors checking a patient's, whatever the form is, like on the clipboard that hangs on the end of the bed, and writing blog posts. What would those 2 things possibly have to do with each other? How can those 2 thoughts brought into close proximity, what can those create? And so I'll just, like, a lot of times it's on my way into town, so I just like mull over. And usually after a couple of minutes, some thoughts start to come. Like, okay, can I create, when it comes to blogging and creating content, the doctor comes in, reviews a situation, and then takes the next step. Okay, how can I create a flywheel that would look like, I can't remember what those, like the patient profile or something, I can't remember what those things are called. I've seen them in like House MD or whatever, where they just quickly review the situation to remind themselves and refresh themselves about the situation and then kind of take the next step. I wonder if I could actually do that with creating blog posts. So anyway, I'll stop there, but that's what, like, I just try and come up with 3 new ideas by using the innovation mechanic of bringing 2 completely disconnected things into close proximity and reflecting on how can the topographies of those 2 situations merge or interact or change each other. So that's what that is. I try to do that every day. 3 Readwise quotes. I'm experimenting with that. Readwise is this fantastic app. Go check it out. Read reviews or look at some YouTube videos on it. It's pretty fantastic. Worth taking a look at. Just a way of reviewing things you have previously thought were important. And then this is the thing I'm currently most excited about. Oh my gosh. I think this is life-changing. I don't know. We'll see. In Fortnite, I don't know if this is true of other games, there's something called VOD reviews in the Fortnite community. So when you play a game of Fortnite, you're playing potentially with people from around the world, usually people in your region, but sometimes people from other regions jump on your region. So I'm in North America East, and so there will be people who decide they want to play on that server, even though they're far from it, and there's people in Oceania. Like, you can jump onto different servers. It just makes the most sense in terms of ping to play with the one that's closest to you. But potentially you could be playing with people around the world in this 22 or so minute game. And somehow, how they do this, I don't know. Fortnite, Epic Games, is saving the game, and so you can go back into the game and rewatch it. But here's the magic. Like, you can rewatch your gameplay, which is cool. You can actually watch the game from anybody else's viewpoint. So if somebody kills you in a game, you can go in and rewatch the game from their perspective. Or you can get in a virtual drone and kind of hover up and like move around in the game and watch the game from different perspectives. Here's why you would do that, not only for entertainment's sake, but also to review your gameplay. Because if you die in game, you can actually go into the moment that you died or a couple minutes beforehand and watch yourself, like get in a drone and watch your movements. But because it just happened, you can remember what you were thinking and the decision-making process that you used that led to your death in the game. And then you can go back a couple minutes and watch the game play from the person who killed you perspective, because they made different decisions that led to them winning. And then you can try and figure out at what moment could I have made a different decision that would have given me a chance or put me in a different position that would have put me in a more advantageous position. And so if you go into it and realize, you know what, at this point, 30 seconds before I died, I should have moved to high ground. And if you do VOD reviews regularly, you can realize, you know what, I'm dying. And almost every time I'm dying, it's because I didn't take high ground soon enough. And then you can start to think as you're playing, oh, I'm seeing somebody, it's time to take high ground. Instead of just like randomly and idiotically moving around the map like I typically do. Or whatever it is. You can try and pinpoint what the next step in your learning process is in order to give yourself a little bit more of an advantageous situation the next game, or as you're moving forward through games. What if I VOD reviewed my day? Because I often get to the end of the day and feel frustrated. Like I wish I had done something, but it's very vague, just a general sense of frustration. But the last couple of days I've thought, especially because I'm working on this board now, so I kind of feel like I have this clearer view of my life, and it kind of strips away some of the vagueness and makes things a little clearer. I have thought, wait a second, why aren't you happy? You literally have a log of everything you did today with timestamps, and you had your plan, and you had your daily flywheel. So I can go back in at the end of the day and look at what I did with this frustration in mind. Like, okay, what are you frustrated about? Let's VOD review the day. When are you just frustrated because that's your natural mental state and you just have to deal with it? And just drink a beer and go to bed and get over it? Or is there a decision? Can I kind of get into a drone view of my day, which now I can with this dashboard? I literally can review my day, which is so fantastic to me, and think through, what were you thinking? What decision? Why did you decide to do that instead of what was on your next action list? Why did you spend so much time doing that? What's the decision-making process that you used to arrive at that decision that led to you feeling frustrated with your day at the end of the day, even though it was a good day? What is the specific source of frustration? Can I identify it? And then what could I have done different so that I ended the day satisfied with how I used up this precious 24 hours in a sequence of a few 24-hour periods that I get in this life? Really want to capitalize on those, especially as I'm getting older. Excuse me. It's becoming more important that I use each day and each week wisely. So I'm super excited. Like, it's the next best thing for me is I can actually, because of this dashboard, I can actually VOD review my days. And, I can go into previous days and VOD review those days. I can go into, where am I? Oh, down here. I can go into my journal and I can look through what I did and debrief it and kind of commentate on it, like as a third party, and kind of coach myself to say, okay, that was a really good day. What made that a good day? How can you, what particular kind of decision-making processes did you use that were a little bit different than you normally did? And then, so that's like a bright spot. If you've read the book Switch by Dan and Chip Heath, they talk about find bright spots in a situation, whether it's a department in a hospital that's profitable and a hospital that's generally not profitable. Like, what's different about that department? What are the dynamics that are different, and how can we, because it's the same situation as everybody else, it's in the same town, it's in the same building, it's in the same kind of general culture. Why are they succeeding? That's the bright spot. Identify it. Find the first principles that are true, that are different in the other departments in the hospital, and then see if you can migrate what's working to the other areas of the hospital. Similarly, I can migrate, like a really good day, I can go in and debrief it and think, okay, what made that work for me? And are there first principle approaches that I can export to and automate in my decision making for future days? All right, I'm obviously pretty excited about that. I also need to go pack my briefcase and head to the van. So I'm going to be done with this, but I'm excited. Hope that's helpful. Again, like always, give me any feedback. I'm always wanting to push the boundaries, so give me any feedback. If you have any questions, think I'm doing something idiotic, let me know. I don't mind. Peace out.